Hi, I'm Roxy. Recently, I was working on a book cover commission, and whilst painting the sky, I realized I had a perfect opportunity on my hands to demonstrate the concept of color relativity. So, while painting the sky here, this was my reference by the way, I was painting the bluish clouds first, and then I got to the point where I needed to paint some of that orange light, or at least what looks like orange light. But from experience, I knew that if I actually went to the other side of the color wheel and picked the orange that I think it is, it was going to be too orange and look wrong. So instead, I stayed with the blue and just dragged it to where it was less saturated. And as soon as I laid that first stroke on the canvas, I got this little dopamine hit. It's like, yes, I was right. And that's when I thought to myself, it would make an interesting video to actually explain my thought process, like how I knew that that was the right move. So I'll start by briefly defining the concept of color temperature. I did a whole lesson on this for my patrons, so I'll just give you a sneak peek of that lesson in their secret Discord channel. And you can see here that everything on this side of the color wheel is considered warm temperatures, and everything on the other side is considered cool temperatures. It doesn't really need explaining, you can feel it just by looking at it. We can also break down each individual color into cooler and warmer variants of itself, but we don't need to get into that right now. The second concept I'll define is complementary colors. Now, I'm sure most of you know what that is, but for those that don't, here's another peek at a patron lesson, another thinly veiled attempt at advertising. If you take colors that are opposite across from each other in the color wheel, they make each other, and I just like this phrase, but they make each other pop. They enhance each other. For example, this cyan red complementary relationship, I took advantage of that in my fairy painting, where I used that cyan deliberately in the background, knowing it would emphasize the reds of my fire fairy. Now, this particular painting is, by design, very saturated. I didn't try to tone down the red or the cyan. They're both screaming for attention as an artistic decision. But that wouldn't work for a more realistic style of painting like the book cover art. Visually, we perceive an orange tint next to all that blue. Orange is a warm color on one side of the color wheel, and blue is a cool color on the opposite side of the color wheel, so they complement each other. In this situation, I painted a bunch of blue clouds, and if I switched to an equally saturated orange, it would be super vibrant like the fairy painting and not look realistic at all. Instead, I used gray and it visually looks orange. To be fair, I was a bit conservative. I could have swung around to the other side of the color wheel once I was in the gray and actually add a slight touch of orange, and that probably would have been more correct. But I didn't mind toning down the sky a bit because the focal point is the hero, not the sky. But the straight up gray works because it's obeying another concept called color relativity. This is an ocular phenomenon when your eye perceives a color differently because that specific color is next to or surrounded by a lot of the opposite color. Kind of like how you come inside from a really bright day and everything is so dark inside you can barely see. But a moment later, you can see perfectly because your eyes have adjusted to the new lighting scenario. In a way, it does that with colors also. Your eye wants to give you the full range of color temperatures. So when you have a scene that is dominated by a specific color temperature, in this case cool blues, your eyes compensate and takes anything that is not cool, for example gray, which is devoid of color, and makes it seem like it's of the opposite color temperature. Here's another example where it's basically, the opposite of the book cover sky. We have a very saturated orange sunset in Sweden. This is a photo taken by my gaming buddy Sierrah Hotel. The snow actually looks quite blue, and it is reflecting some blue from the sky, but if you painted it as blue as you perceive it to be, you'd probably be wrong. So as a demo, let's do a quick paint. So let's color pick this orange and the reddish color. Then we've got that dark horizon. And now for the snow color, I'm not going to eyedrop. I'll go to the color wheel, and perceptively it looks like this kind of blue to me. So slap that down and you can see it's too blue. So instead, gonna pull it almost all the way to complete gray, to complete desaturation. Try that instead. I can already see that looks better. But let's color pick and see how close I was. Yep, that's pretty close. So on that side we can see it's a little bit more blue. So maybe we can just pump it up in the color wheel there, a little bit darker. Some lighter grays here and there. And then it's basically just down to detailing and shaping. So that wraps it up. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this, quick painting lessons. Thanks for watching. Much obliged if you leave a like and subscribe. Even more obliged if you become one of my precious patrons for $5 USD a month. Until the next one, God bless.